clarify whether she gave those instructions personally or whether she was operating on the evidence given to her by these two senior officers who we've been told were prepared to give sworn testimony to the O'Higgins Commission that this meeting in Mullingar, where allegedly Maurice McCabe had admitted his poor motivation, was revealed. I suppose the first question is, did these two senior officers submit affidavits to that effect? Because that is a criminal offence. They, in essence, would have been guilty, or if the affidavits were there, are guilty
so
of criminal
an affidavit
behaviour
being
in misleading.
a sworn document, but we don't know if we did. Do we know if there was a minute of that meeting? We know Maurice McCabe had a recording, but do we know if there was a minute or a note-taking of that meeting?
I don't know if that's the case, but I think what everybody knows now is that it's very lucky for Maurice McCabe that he did record it, because history would be very different for him had that not been the case. So I think that, first of all, the Commissioner, this idea that the Commissioner is prevented legally from speaking up does not hold any sway whatsoever.
Where should she do it?
Well, that's up to her. The Minister has said that she is keen for the Commissioner to clarify these remarks. So if I was the Minister for Justice, I'd be insisting that she answers it. The Minister has powers under the Garda Síochána Policing Authority Act to actually remove the Garda Commissioner. At the very least, she could conduct an investigation into this behaviour, which falls under the terms of that legislation and brings discredit to the office. She can instruct GSOC, the Garda Ombudsman, to investigate the behaviour of the Garda Commissioner if it's believed that an offence might have been committed, which would constitute serious misconduct.
One step at a time, Clare Daly, that the first thing is to ask the Garda Commissioner to give the clarification that's being requested here around the legal instruction, the legal advice.
And so far, attempts to do that have been met with this answer that it would be that she has been advised that she can't discuss the details of the proceedings, and so far hasn't been prepared to shed any light. Now, the responsibility for getting her to do that, in my opinion, rests with the Minister for Justice.
Is there any other way around this? When I say that, these are in many ways unprecedented times. We have this report, but we have a number of questions arising out of it. Is there any means of getting clarity through the Commission itself, albeit that it was an inquisitorial private commission?
Well, there are huge questions now for the O'Higgins Commission. I mean, anybody who has read that document would see severe contradictions in it. On the one hand, O'Higgins does uphold the vast majority of Maurice McCabe's allegations. He pinpoints severe weaknesses in the internal Garda investigations into those complaints, but he doesn't draw any conclusions or hold anybody to account. And now we have emerging that whole swathes of evidence given to the Commission haven't been included in the final report. So that does question, I suppose, the whole basis of the O'Higgins Commission itself. We will be discussing these matters in the Dáil next week, and hopefully that can shed more light.
We'll have the debate. In the last few minutes, Clare Daly, and I believe you've had sight of it, GSOC has published a report into those allegations that information about your arrest for suspected drink driving at the time were leaked from within the Garda Síochána. I'll just read a paragraph from GSOC, and they say, at the conclusion of the investigation, the Ombudsman Commission considered there was insufficient evidence of a criminal offence by any individual to warrant sending a file to the office of the DPP. However, while it's not possible to state that this information was released by a particular Garda or any other identifiable person, there does appear to be sufficient evidence to state on the balance of probabilities that some of the detail related to Deputy Daly's arrest emanated from within the Garda Síochána organisation and were made available to members of the media in an unauthorised manner. The Ombudsman Commission is of the view that Deputy Daly was entitled to the presumption of innocence and that she had a right to privacy. These rights appear to have been infringed by the release of such information. Your reaction?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the first thing to say is that this case has been going on for nearly 3.5 years, which would give people an indication of how difficult it is for GSOC to process any complaints. In the early years, they were met with huge delays in requests for documentation from An Garda Síochána. It took a long time for them to come out with that. I think the fact that they have, if you like, found in our favour that the leak came from either An Garda Síochána or civilian members of An Garda Síochána is really what we had sought. I mean, we hadn't sought any individual criminal prosecution. I think what they've clearly said is that the evidence that they unearthed wasn't sufficient to support the threshold for a criminal prosecution against any one individual, where the onus of proof is obviously a lot higher, but that they were able to find that the source of the leak came from the Gardaí, and in that sense that would...
Will you take it further, or are you taking it further already through the civil courts? And would you like an apology?
I would absolutely like an apology, and civil
whom?
proceedings were absolute from the Garda Commissioner, as like the civil proceedings have been issued against the Garda Commissioner a number of years ago on this matter. Unfortunately, that's how long our justice system takes to process these things. But obviously, the favourable outcome from GSOC in our report would probably assist that case, I would imagine.
Clare Daly, thank you very much for joining us. 25 minutes past